Well, let's discuss this some more. I'm now being joined on the program by Adewale Oyenride, who is the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. Thank you very much, Mr. Adewale, for your time. You look at the way this whole issue about the new national minimum wage is playing out now. I'm just wondering, in the whole of this discussion, where exactly is the place of the private sector that you represent? Because it would appear now that the negotiation has been mainly between the federal government and the labor union. So where is your role at this crucial stage?
Thank you very much for the question. The reality of the minimum wage is that it is driven by a tripartite. The employers, the organized labor, and then government. It cannot be completed without those three being together, embarking in this consultative process. It cannot be completed. The moment one party is not there, it is a bipartite agreement, which is allowable. Bipartite means two people agreeing, negotiating, consultatively engaging, which is agreeable, which is okay, which is allowable in the context of the ILO. So, but for the national minimum wage, globally, it is a tripartite arrangement between the employer, the workers, and then the government. Why have we been a bit silent? I think we are more, let's say, we are more attuned to the realities of the situation. We are more attuned to the dictates and the courtesies demanded of this kind of negotiation. It is not a public engagement, It's meant to be a consultation between three parties. And those three parties are supposed to meet in a room and consultatively engage, come up with a position, a recommendation to the president. So it is not technically, it shouldn't be a media war or a paparazzi kind of thing. Unfortunately, it has been taken to that realm. Why we are not satisfied with it or we are not comfortable with it, because it is a tripartite issue, and our view is that, look, the tripartite should be allowed to exhaust that mechanism before an external party, quote unquote, will come and breach that process. That's why we have found ourselves, but definitely we have not been quiet. We have restricted our engagement significantly to the table in the National Minimum Wage Committee level.
So let's talk about this document that has been submitted to the president. Did you make any input at all in it?
Well, I don't know about the document. There have been documents flying around about template for the minimum wage, and the presidency has come to deny it. So we'll responsibly, whatever is not verified, we are careful not to make any comment about it.
Well, the reason I asked that question is because, what we know is that the finance minister submitted a template to the presidency. Now, that template, I would assume, is for the federal government, because just as you said, it's supposed to be a tripartite arrangement. So I'm just wondering whether you made inputs to whatever it is that the finance minister submitted to the president.
Now, let me clarify that process. The private sector, we are not obliged to share our templates of figures, the parameters. We are not obliged to share it with any member of the tripartite. We are not. The federal government, the Minister for Finance and the Minister of the Economy shared a template, or what we can call, hypothetically, I can't say authoritatively, hypothetically, a template of, okay, this is how much it will cost the federal government. If you go A, B, C sides, maybe 2 or 3 different scenarios for the federal government to consider. It doesn't involve the private sector, so we didn't dabble into it. Labor's parameters and labor's templates for arriving at what they arrived at, it was strictly labor's parameter. We don't have to dabble into it. So what the Minister of Finance have passed to the president, which we also had the presidency have denied, is a parameter, is a template for the federal government. come to think of it, there's also the state governors in this issue, because we have 6 state government governors in the committee. So they also have to come up with their own template. So it's the responsibility of each arm of government or each tripartite to come up with its own template.
And I'm just wondering, how then do you like merge everything to come up with a definitive template that is acceptable, or a final template now that is acceptable and agreeable to everyone, especially to the labor unions? It's a bit complex.
Now, we don't have to agree. That's what we should understand. We're not involved in collective bargaining. What we are doing is a consultative process where everybody bring their figures and you try as much as practicable to arrive at the consensus. Now, if you are not arriving at the consensus, what we are sending to the president is a recommendation. It's not to put a gun in his head. It's a recommendation of this is what the tripartite has done. And that is what happened in 2019. In 2019, organized labor and the private sector, which we represented then, agreed on 30,000. Then the state governors came and said, look, they can't pay 30,000. They are only going to pay 22,000. While the private sector and labor agreed 30, the governor said, look, it is 22 that they can afford. So the committee chair prepared this report and made a recommendation of 30,000 to the federal government. Now, if you check the report of that 2029 national minimum wage negotiation, the 6 governors, they did not sign that report. They didn't sign the report. It was signed between the private sector and organized labor significantly. And
that's the 2019 agreement, you mean?
The governors did not sign. So that's because we don't have to, it's not an agreement. We're not involved in a collective bargaining process. Our work is to meet as much as possible, come up with a consensus. And if you can't agree at the consensus, because the process cannot be inconclusive forever. So we must make a recommendation to the president to say, look, these are the figures that this person recommended. This is the figure from this person. This is the figure from this person. Then the president, who is the commander-in-chief, he has the sole responsibility, the sole discretion to accept the figure that the committee recommended or to reject it. It is his work, his prerogative to pick a figure to say, look, from my best judgment and for what I have seen, this is the figure that I'm passing to the National Assembly for legislative action, which might involve a public hearing. So any of us that also have issues can still approach the legislature to say, look, we don't agree with this, with what the president have done. Then after the public hearing, it either sails through and become a law that the National Assembly will send to the president for his assent. So those are the processes it will follow. It's not a hard and fast rule of 2 + 2 = 4. Those processes have to be followed, and the expectation is that we all subject ourselves to those processes.
So whatever the government, are you now saying that whatever the government eventually announces, whatever figure the government eventually announces, that Nigerian employers under your group will be bound by it? So if the government says, for instance, that the national minimum wage will be XY figure, you would be bound by that?
Once it becomes a law, except you want to be lawless, once it becomes a law, you are significantly bound by it. Now, if you are not satisfied with that process, there's also a process that has been set inherently within this whole process to address grievances. I can approach the National Industrial Court. And also inherent in the system is also some level of exceptions to also make sure in the conversation you protect certain group of employers who might be so vulnerable that they cannot meet this, whatever you fix as national minimum wage. And those involve the SMEs. Predominantly, the SMEs are suffering, and you find a way to protect them through those exceptions.
Yes.
But basically, once it is a law, it is expected that everybody should abide by the law. When it was 30,000, you have many governors, as we have read, not not complying with the law, which is a different thing entirely. So, but once it's a law, it is expected that everybody will abide by the law.
Let me just ask you one final question before you go. The last time we heard from the private sector was that you made an offer of 57,000 naira. Have you pushed up that offer? Have you pushed it up? Where exactly, what offer do you have on the table now?
Our offer, painfully, sacrificially, was 60,000. The last one we made was 60,000. And that's where we stand. And it's easy to understand. What we offered is 100% increase. That's 60,000 from 30,000. And if you look at the current situation of organized businesses, if you look at the challenges that we currently face, you agree with us that 60,000 it is quite sacrificial.
Absolutely. So if the government says, look, okay, it's going to be 75,000 or 100,000 or 200,000, what then would you do?
When we get to that bridge, we'll cross it.
It's a very complex negotiation, no doubt at all. But all the same,
Absolutely.
Thank you very much,
bridge,
Mr. Adewale Oyenride, the Director General of Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. Thanks a lot, sir, for your time.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Opinions are free. Facts are sacred. But truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
Because when you go into public office, you must be ready to answer to the people.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world. A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.